Alright. Move to item number 2, before us an ordinance amending the village code at sections 42.8 for part-time police officers. And there were some questions last week. So, open up the floor. Any questions?
Mayor, I think we tabled all of this last week. I don't think we had questions. I think it was all tabled due to the fact that the chief wasn't here to answer any questions.
Okay. All right, so what's questions?
I have a question.
All right.
And this is actually Trustee Myers' question, and he's not here, I'm asking for him. We just went through the ordinance review committee, and one of the things that he asked was, if you look on page number 3, section C11, it says that the officers may be required to pass a psychological and/or physical examination, including the drug screening.
Okay.
His concern was to change the may to must, to make it a requirement. I said that this language is probably pretty standard, and it may be a cost issue or something that we don't necessarily need to have them do this, because a lot of the part-time officers will be coming from other departments who've already had the training. But we discussed in the committee the possibility of changing this to that they must show proof that they've had this done by a certain period of time. 10 years was discussed, 5 years was discussed, 2 years, but that was just maybe a suggestion that we change this. They must be able to show proof that they have in fact, have had psychological and or physical examination testing, and that must be a requirement.
Okay, so they must be able to show proof that they passed a psychological and a physical examination, including drug screening. All right, has that changed? All right, anything else?
Yes.
Trustee?
I have several. First question, and I ask this all the time, where and what are we getting this money for? We just hired 2 officers. And where are we getting the money for the part-time? What line item is it coming out of?
Okay, as it was discussed during budget hearings, the 5 part-time police officers were budgeted into this year's budget.
Did you say 5?
So, yeah, it's 5.
I thought it was 3.
It's 5. What's that? Part-time police officers, 5. Yep, and it was all budgeted into the line item.
Okay, again, how many hours, well, let's go back to, you said it was budgeted. We can always keep saying, is that coming out of the overtime? Because
No,
I asked about the money that we deleted, about $100 and some thousand from last year to this year. Is that what you're going to use that money for? Because I looked at the budget from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. It's about the same. So where is the money for, I mean, we keep saying it's coming out. We can sit there and keep saying back and forth it's coming out with such and such. I'm asking, the wages from last year to this year, if you look at it, are about the same. So where in that budget are we appropriating money for? Now I thought it was 3. For 5 police officers part-time. I don't know how many hours are they limited to. And is it coming out of the overtime? Because I was hearing a lot of times, even doing budget hearing, that's why I wanted the chief here, stating that if we hire part-time police officers, we can subtract money from the overtime. So is that where he plans on getting this money for? Because we just, like I said, we hired one with the cops grant, and we hired one to replace someone. But now we're hiring 5 officers. So my first question is, how many hours are they guaranteed so many hours a month? Is it so many hours they can work in a year? And quite naturally, the last one, where beside wages are we pulling the money from?
all right, the hours are, I think it's 20 hours per week. It comes out to be what, 1,040 per year, 1,040.
We have 1,040 hours. Okay, 20 hours per week.
Yep.
Okay, that's how much? 20,000 per person.
24,000.
Per person. That's $100,000. Where in the budget is that? And that's why I'm asking. Is that supposedly coming out of the $100,000 that we supposedly didn't put into the overtime?
It was 200,000.
No, I'm talking about between. They budgeted for $106,000 this year. Last year we spent 300, but we did budget for 200.
I think, because I remember the conversation, the discussion that you and I had during the budget, and it was, last year, we were looking at you were asking about the 200, I think it was $206,000 difference. That was taken from the overtime that we had last year, and then there was a surplus of $206,000 that was put into the actual full-time payment. And how it was explained at that time was, so you have, let's just say you have $300,000, okay? You have 200 in the regular time wages and 100 in overtime. And where you spent $300,000 last year, they took 200 from the overtime and added that to the amount for regular time. So you still have the same amount of money, it's just appropriated differently. And I know that I'm sure you remember me saying, but I know I've said multiple times, the only way you can get rid of overtime is more bodies. Because if you have a sergeant, and you know that sergeants have first right of refusal for overtime, you have a sergeant who roughly makes around $30 an hour, they get time and a half, that's $45 an hour to do something. If they choose to get the overtime, because we want people on the streets, we have details, things like that, you can pay somebody $45 an hour to do it, or you can pay somebody, I think I figured out, it breaks down to like $23 an hour, around that. So fiscally, which one makes more sense, $23 versus $45? And I think that, I've said in the past, part-time officers, I know our police department has not been a fan of part-time officers. I haven't been a fan of part-time officers, and I've said that in the past, but my concern is that we get people on the street the best and most fiscally responsible way possible. So if we put a person on the street for $45 or $24, I think that's something to look at.
I think we have to keep looking at putting additional police officers on shift. Again, that's the department head's responsibility to how they bring them in. If he puts 3 of the part-time on one shift, the busiest shifts, or he leaves it at 2, leaves it at 1. The key is making sure we have officers on the street. Number 2, making sure our officers, making it safer for our officers. Currently, right now, you have 1 officer in a car. That officer pulls someone over, you're pointing to your second or your third police officer over from other beats. Okay? This allows to have a part-time officer with the police officer. He has his backup, he or she, they have their backup. So when you look at the part-time police officers, it not only makes the street safer, it also makes our police officers are safer. Again, when we sat down with the budget, we looked at it. The part-time police officers, again, we talked about being able to have people look and keep an eye on the prisoners. You can pay someone, our police officer, time and a half to watch a prisoner, or if we have part-timers already sitting here working, we've got someone sitting there and they want to keep an eye on prisoners. So, the police chief, it's his responsibility how he, keeps his shifts going. But this is, again, another way to get those overtime numbers down, but also we're going to put additional bodies on the street, additional safety for not only our residents, but also for our police officers.
Okay, now, I know you, Trustee Williams and the mayor, my question still remains. Last year's budget, we went over almost $185,000 in overtime. Now, you're telling me by hiring these 5, I thought it was 3 police officers, it's going to take the place of the overtime that we have, because the overtime that we budgeted for is only $106,000. So now you're telling me that the officers that you put in place are going to make up the difference of the overtime. Also, and I said this many times, police officers do not, and I'll go on record, police officers do not stop crime. People do. Police officers are there to, after it's over, to mop it up. That's the only time they're called. Because all you have to do is wait for them to leave the street, boom, it happens. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have more police officers. I'm saying I'm tired of each and every other month that we have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul just to pay payroll. If you're going to talk about adding 5 people here, 3 people there, 3 people here, you're talking about 11 new people that were not on the payroll last fiscal year to bring them here, and we've already had problems as far as paying payroll and paying bills that we need to pay. I do know that this is not going to stop overtime. We thought it was going to do something before, but it's not going to stop overtime. That's my first question. My second question, what does the FOP think about, and we took care of that problem, because you better believe that they're going to, and we said that. But that's something that we'll talk about in a later faction as far as what the FOP stands for, because we'll talk about that when it comes to personnel. However, I'm sorry, I don't see where we're going to get this money from. I was under the understanding it was 3. For 5 now. 5 part-time police officers because if they write a ticket and they're supposed to go to court the next day, if they're working somewhere else, who goes to court for them? Because if they're working during the day, if they work at night here and working during the day there. That was my first question. My second question, are we talking about hiring officers that are already police officers, or are we talking about hiring people that we have to train? If we have to train, that's more money we have to pay for. So that's going to have to be taken care of. So I don't see anything in here that says already police officers. It says GED, test, psychological test. That part, okay, but it doesn't say, because if they're not a police officer, they have to be trained. We have to pay for that. Everyone gets a psych test whether you're a police officer or not because you're coming here. But if they're not trained, that means we have to pay for their training. Who knows how many thousands of dollars that is per 5 people. So I'm just looking at where are we getting this money from to pay for this? And that's why I asked the first question, is it coming?
All right, let's go through your questions real quick. First
Sure.
First of all, overtime last year. We knew that we had overtime last year because number one, we lost 2 police officers, which meant we had to fill those positions with officers working overtime. We also know that we had injuries where officers were off the streets because of injuries. Again, to fill those positions took officers with overtime. And we also did some special details. So, which the board was aware of, and the board was aware of during board meetings and when those special details were happening. So those overtime, when you look at the overtime for those, again, I think currently right now we still have another officer off, right? So right now we have another officer that's off, and that position right now is being filled with overtime. So when you look at that kind of stuff, last year's overtime, if we would not have been two officers short, and those positions had to be filled with overtime, we probably would have been very, very close to the budget.
We hired to.
No, we just hired them this year.
Okay, this year, okay,
So we went probably, 6 months last year without 2 police officers, which all their hours had to be filled with overtime.
Okay.
The other thing too is you talk about the FOP. The FOP is not involved in this because these are not union employees. These are part-time employees. And you also talked about part-time for police officers, or for part-time police officers. There's no overtime. Again, that's up to the chief to make sure that he directs, if he knows that they work 20 hours this week and he knows they have court the next week, he has to be able to arrange their hours so that their hours that they're working, maybe they're at court. So, and
what if they have another job?
We
What if they have another job? If they're a police officer at another municipality, they work during the day, and they have to come to court that day. Who represents that ticket that's being written? I mean, if they're officers or they work during the day.
And we talked about all that, and the chief feels very confident that he can handle the hours, keep the overtime down. And then the last thing about trained or not, we are looking for trained police officers who are already
That doesn't say that. It's not in here.
So, again, the chief knows, and that's what he's looking for, that there's a lot of officers out there that are trained.
But it's not, we're passing an ordinance to give a guy, that's what the ordinance is for.
It's a
The ordinance
part-time
is,
police officer.
it's a part-time. But we're passing an ordinance to give a guideline for hiring. In this ordinance has nothing to state that you have to, or you should be already an officer somewhere. There's nothing in here that says that. It says the basic, the rules. Now, they're going to go through our police and fire commission when they get hired, or are we just going to hire, or is it just the police chief is going to hire himself? Does it have to go through the commission?
This one, no, I don't think it does.
So to be a police officer in the village, you don't have to come before the police and fire
Not
commission.
part-time, you don't have to, because it's less than 40 hours per week.
And there's no liability requirements there. I mean, there's nothing in liability. We could just get a person that we happen to like, see, or whatever the case may be. As long as they have standard credentials, pass the psych test, they could be a police part-time police officer here in Sauk Village. And there is nobody that's going to amen their hiring but the police chief.
I think it's just like any other department head we have, the department head hires the individuals. Public Works is hired.
But this is, don't you think the standards should be a little bit better though? A little bit bigger? The standards for a person that's out there with a gun in front of a lot of people, don't you think the standards should be a little higher to have that person out there other than their sight? Don't you think the Police and Fire Commission should have something to say about that?
No, because they only, the Police and Fire Commission is involved for 40 hours a month. These are part-time police officers.
Okay, and then you talked about the officers that were, I don't know, I'm sure every trustee up here that was here the last budget remembers that this budget that we have now, last year we went over, and it was due to the police department. The overtime went over almost $200,000. I don't see how we're going to say that by hiring 7 people. 2 were from people that were already not here, like I said, one got hurt, another one left. Okay, we hired 2. Part-time police officers, I don't see it. And then also qualifications in this ordinance should have some type of teeth besides being 21, psych test, GED.
All right, any other questions? Trustee?
I have 2 questions and then a comment.
Okay.
So the Police and Fire Commission, we talked about them not being a part of the hiring process. What about discipline? Because right now, officers are disciplined through police and fire. So once they become a part of the department, will they be disciplined through the police and fire, or will it be the chief?
Through the chief.
Okay. And then, do we have, I don't know if this would be the proper document to put this in, or this is the about, but would there ever be a time where a part-time officer would be like the officer in charge of the shift? Is that something that's been thought about?
No. No.
Okay, so that would be something that I would make sure that, not because they're inadequate or, I'm sure that they'll be fine with their jobs, but because we do have sergeant personnel, we do have seasoned personnel that know our streets, know our town. I think it's something that should definitely be thought about.
It makes it very clear. If you look at item B, it talks about duties. A part-time police officer shall not be assigned to supervise or direct full-time officers.
Okay, great.
And then again, it talks about the training. It talks about, if you look at pipe number B, it says part-time police officers shall be trained in accordance with the Illinois Police Training. It gives the act, the section, and the rules and requirements by the ILETSB.
Okay.
So it's Illinois something training standards board.
Okay. And then just my comment, we talked about overtime last year, and I'm gonna take the number $300,000. So if we spent $300,000 on overtime, okay, at the sergeant's salary at $40 an hour, $45 an hour, that's 6,666 hours of overtime. I just took $300,000 divided by 45, that's what I got. 66, okay? So if we had that, if that was how many hours we had of overtime, 66, I would put that at the price of $24 an hour different, okay? $24 an hour, new part-time officer. I came up with a total of $159,984, which is $140,000.16 less than $300,000. So to answer the question of how part-time officers can save overtime, if you've got 6,666 hours that need to be worked, and you're paying either $45 an hour, which would give you $300,000, or you're paying $24 an hour, which would give you roughly $160,000, that's $140,000 difference, just right there, because you're not paying an overtime fee. Now, I agree with you, Trustee Burgess, it's not going to cut off all overtime. I don't know if that's why there's still money in the overtime budget, because we know that there's going to be overtime. But if the amount of hours that need to be worked don't change, and if we could get qualified and competent people to work those hours at a lesser rate, I think that's something we'll get to.
But trustee, you have to, I don't know, you're forgetting the main thing. We went over $200,000 in the police budget last year. Even though you said
about one line item, they went $200,000.
if it was whatever line item that came out of that budget, I don't care what line item it was, we were over $200,000 what we budgeted for the police department last fiscal year. Now, if we gonna spend, if we spent 300 some thousand this year, we spent 100 some thousand, we still went over. So we're already looking at an overage. Without overtime, we're looking at an overage. Without day one, and we all remember here, last year, we were over in October. So you still had November, December, January, February, March, and April. You still had 6 months to go. And we were already at our target rate for overtime at that time. So I'm just asking, I'm asking, my question was, is always going to be finances. Show me where this money's coming. We can sit there and say there's money in the budget for this, money in the budget for that. Is money in the budget for whatever you want it to be at that time? If one of these trustees asks you for $1, we don't have the money because it's not the budget. But if you want to do something and you want to make money in the budget, all you have to do is speak it. Say, we got money in the budget, let's go ahead and vote on it, and then we'll deal with it when it comes. I'm tired of dealing when it happens. If I see a bomb coming, you think I'll wait and see where it's going to hit before I get out the way? So all I'm asking is, where are we getting this money from? I see where we got the money from, and I said that for the 2 hirees. One was a grant, and the other one, the person, he left. Now, we're bringing 5 more in. I don't see the money. We're hiring all these people with the same amount or less than we had last year. We're getting in less tax money than we did last year. We're getting in less tax money. Reason being, we have less residents, less people paying taxes. It's time for us to be more fiscally responsible to say, okay, let's wait a minute. Let's see how at least 6 months fare out and how we're doing 6 months. Then we can go and hire. What's the rush to hire today? Because crime is not going to stop because you flood the streets with police officers.
I think, again, we go back to, we talked about, we went almost 6 months last year without 2 police officers, which means officers had to work overtime. So you talked about the last 6 months, we saw overtime go up, you're correct. Because the last 6 months we were without 2 police officers, and it took officers to work overtime to fill those positions. Now, the other thing too is, if you look at the budget, we're already almost 2 months into the budget. Okay. All right. So we've got 2 months already into the budget where we don't have these officers hired yet. Again, we still have a hiring time that's going to take the chief to get someone hired. So, with the money being budgeted already this year for 5 police officers starting from when the budget was passed, we're already almost 2 months, I think, into the budget already. And we haven't spent a dime for those part-time police officers. So, when you look at the money, and again, it probably, I can estimate, you're probably looking at another month or 2 before the chief can get applications out there, have people start coming in. He has such an interview process, getting people. We could be probably almost 4 to 5 months into this budget year. Now, the important thing too is remember that we're in the middle of getting ready into our hottest months where we know we're having the most problems. Getting someone in here and getting them trained, especially over the winter months, and make sure that we're ready for next spring and as we move forward into there. So again, all the amount for the entire year for 5 part-time police officers were included into the line item for this budget. But we're already into 2 months, almost 2 months into this budget. We don't have one of them hired yet.
Where's the training money coming from, man?
Trustee Jones. We're getting people already trained. Trustee Jones.
Is this strictly for cost savings? That's the first question. Or are we serious about getting control of the crime in our community? If we're serious about getting control of the crime in the community, flooding the streets with officers is not going to answer the questions. It's just not going to take care of the problem that we have. We have a disconnect in this community, and that disconnect needs to be rectified. By hiring more police officers from elsewhere, from who knows where they're coming from, it's not going to bring any connect in with the residents of the village. You have to create programs. You have to create more thoughts that's going to bring the police and the community together. You just can't stick a cop on the street. We done seen, too many of the residents done seen bad things. They have a different thought process about some of the police officers. We know we have some good police officers. What we need to do is show that we have good police officers. If we're gonna put money anywhere, we should put money into bringing the community together with the police officers. That's one thing.
I asked the finance director, because I knew this number wasn't correct, but while we did go over overtime on the police department, let's make sure we're very clear. The police department last year was budgeted $3.2 million. That was what the original amount was. Last year, the police department, under their budget line item, only spent 2.9. So those are the actual numbers. So when you look at one line item that they were over on overtime, this whole entire board knew they were going to be over it, because we talked about officers. We had positions that were not filled. We talked about there was officers that were off on medical. So the overall budget for the police department was under last year what was budgeted, except for one line item. And even with that one line item being over, it was still under. So just want to make sure I made the guy, because I just want to make sure, I don't know if the audience was catching that, but from what I was hearing the trustees say, it sounded like the whole entire department was over by, $200,000. All right? Any other questions? Trustee Myers.
Under C12, it says, must complete 400 hours of certified training as prescribed by the Illinois Law Enforcement and Standard Board are eligible to receive a waiver of such training. It does not mention prior to coming on board with us or during the time to come on board. It just says must complete 400 hours. We need something in there to say that they must have this training before they come on board. And now it's a wide open statement, must complete 400 hours of certified training. That means that raise your right hand, you're sworn in, you're a cop now, go play cop. And then later on, you can get your 400 hours. We're gonna be paying out good money to send these guys to get that training. And these officers, when they come on board, they must sort of prove that they have this certification that they give them. They finished it 400 some odd hours. I know I had to show proof, and I don't think any other officer, the part-time officers, I know that part-time in other towns, they had to show proof that they received a certified training. But that out of C12 doesn't state that.
So-
something that is to be sure.
So we change it to must have completed 400 hours of certified training as prescribed by the state law enforcement and standards board, or eligible to receive a waiver of such training. So it says they must have. Take out right there, it says must have completed. So that means before they're hired, they must have it completed. Trustee, go ahead.
Say completed.
I know, we got the changes right here.
That's changed, yeah.
Yep. So far we got two changes. Under 11, it says must show proof that they have passed a psychological and physical exam, including a drug screening. And 12 says must have completed 400 hours of certified training as prescribed by the state law enforcement and standard board, or eligible to receive such waiver. Trustee Reyes.
And I know that Trustee Jones didn't finish his whole comment, but what I was thinking, what I was doing the gist of it, was you were talking about building community relations between our current police department and our residents. Well, to speak to that, I think if you have more officers available on the street, then you will have more officers available to participate in community events. I know that there have been many times, speaking from Public Relations Committee, where we've wanted or requested officers to be a part of certain things, i.e. student government day. We have officers that participate by helping us chaperone, helping us drive the kids around, and that is seen as a chance for overtime. They have to sign up for that if they want to do it, and that's they get overtime for that, because we can't take away the 3 or 4 officers that participate in student government day. We can't take those officers off the street to chaperone a bunch of kids around all day. They love it, and they love riding the police cars, but if we took 4 officers off the street, there would be no officers on the street. So that's an opportunity for overtime. So you got 4 officers getting overtime for doing that. If you had more part-time officers, that would be an opportunity to not have to, maybe not have to pay overtime, where you could put people, part-time officers on the street and put the seasoned officers in the government there, vice versa, or whatever. But more programs like that, something Parks and Rec wanted to do, something that Community Outreach Partnership Committee wanted to do. We would have officers, neighborhood watch, we would have officers potentially available to participate, where even if they did incur overtime, we would still have bodies able to do that. Because right now, even if we approved the overtime, we might not have the staff. We say we already got 1 officer still out, we're got the cop grant person kind of coming in and trying to work their way in. You've got newer officers where we don't even have the staff right now to be able to participate in that. And I agree with you. You know, this is not a new problem. We've had many people say that their relationship with the police department and Sauk Village hasn't always been great. It's a federal issue. It's not just in Sauk Village. And I think if we had the opportunity to have more programs like that, it would be a good idea. But again, this would be something that could potentially help that. And I think that that's something that needs to be looked at in the police department. And if other departments, I mean, I don't know necessarily how they would help, maybe the other committees besides like Parks and Rec, they would watch public program, public relations. But it's something to think about. I think it's a good point that you brought up. But again, I think that part-time officers will be able to assist in that.
I think the other thing to make sure you point out is under item B, that, especially that last sentence, talking about the part-time officers should be trained in accordance. These officers will be already trained through the Illinois Law Enforcement and Training Board. So they'll already have their psychological test. They would have already passed it. Item B, it says part-time officers shall be trained in accordance with the Illinois Police Training Act. It gives you the act right there, and the rules and requirements of the ILES ETSB. So,
Are they going to be trained by us, Mayor?
yeah, it's, what's that?
Are they going to be trained by prior to coming, or are we going to train them?
No, we're not going to be paid for training. We're looking for certified officers, which it says right there under item B. So you were looking for certified officers that have already been trained and have already passed. So, and again, I think that, we've heard a lot of discussion about the overtime. And again, the key is to reduce the overtime, but that's also the key is for more safety. Be able to have some police officers. We talk about the safety for our residents, but we also talk about the safety for our police officers.
So you're saying part-time officers, instead of it saying shall be, you want to change that to must be?
Shall is the shall and will. Let's see, I think this mixed up. Shall, will, should, could. Shall.
I'm asking, are you changing the,
Okay, we'll change it to must. Yeah. I was just trying to think how it was worded. So part-time officers must be trained. Okay, so that's the third change we've got here. Item number B. Must be trained in accordance with the Illinois Police Training Act. It has the act and the rules and requirements of the Illinois TSB.
Mr. Mayor, I still have a problem. When we hire a police officer here in the village, because the part-times will have just about as much jurisdiction as a full-time police officer, especially if he's out there working by himself with someone else. He still has to make that decision first. And so he's got to be able to make that decision whether what to do or what not to do. If that's the case, then I don't see why just one person can make that decision whether we should or should not hire that person. Just leave it up to one person. I don't care if he is the police chief. It should be a committee, because if he makes a mistake, it's going to come back on this village. It's not going to come back on the chief. We as trustees and also as mayor are going to have to take the brunt of anything that happens while we have an employee that went out there and made a mistake. Right now you have a board. You have a Police and Fire Commission board. But to put a person out there on the street and you say you're going to supersede the Police and Fire Commission and just have one person distinguish whether we should or should not fire, I'm not in agreement with that. I just don't see that. Because this person does have someone's life and death, or their life in their hands at that time. They have to make that decision. So it's more than just putting police officers on the street. We can line the street up with all kind of people. But what type of people are you gonna line them up with? Who's gonna look at that background? Who's gonna say, well, we should do this? Okay, we have one person, and then they don't present this person to the board or nothing. I know we don't do it now for our police, but we have a commission that does do it for when we hire police officers. Well, I don't know why we're changing it to one person to be responsible for hiring this person.
All right, and again, I think I said it earlier, and it's fact, it's in item item A, says part-time officers or officers that work less than 40 hours per week are not appointed by the Police and Fire Commission. So,
But
there
that's
is
something you put in.
Police and Fire Commission is for police officers that are hired for 40 hours or more.
But, okay, someone made this employment a requirement. This wasn't just, I don't think you got it from anywhere. This is something that was put in there for us to vote on. It's not something that's written in stone. Is it taken from a book or something that says this is what you should do when you hire police officers part-time? I'm just asking because we're making up this ordinance. This ordinance is being made up, and we're amending an ordinance that was in place. So was this in place at the time of the ordinance for part-time police officers? Because I've never seen an ordinance for a part-time police officer in the village since I've been trustee. I've never seen an ordinance for part-time police officers. So we're amending, I guess, section 42, to 42, and part 28. So I guess there must be a ordinance that says police or part-time police officers. I like to see that one.
Sauk Village used to have part-time police officers, auxiliary police officers.
I used to be 20.
They used to,
I used to be 20. I mean, but
what has
that's
happened, what has happened is state statutes and things have changed, and things that have to be changed.
Okay.
Amendments.
So can we see whatever that Sauk Village has in place for part-time police officers? If we're amending something that's already in place. That's what it is, amending a order or a ordinance that's in place, and we're amending to put this in there. That's what amended means. So I never saw, and I haven't seen a ordinance that has or states that we have an ordinance for part-time police officers.
All right, any other questions? Trustee Tate.
Mr. Mayor,
Aye.
clarification on trustee Burgess. That ordinance, I don't think it says part-time, I think it says auxiliary police officer. That's the reason they're going to this one here, because this one here spells out part-time. The state of Illinois does not recognize auxiliary police officers anymore. So this one is the one that is going to go in place to replace that one we did have on the books. And I can produce you a copy real quick if you need it. But it says auxiliary, sir.
Okay, so then it should have said amending the auxiliary ordinance that was put in place X amount of time. We're amending that and we're putting this in place. That's what it should say. If it was a ordinance for auxiliary officers, okay, fine. Put that in there, and then we can look and see exactly what we had versus what we're trying to amend.
So again, if we read the title of this, it says an ordinance amending the village code to add, it says it right in its title, section 42-28, part-time police officers. All right, so trustee Tate.
This has been an enlightening conversation. I think this whole agenda in title is illegal. And I'm saying that because when we had a committee meeting where the mayor and the police chief were absent from, we were asked to table what you see on the current agenda as 2, 3, 4. We were told to table that until they could be present for the next committee meeting for discussion. Now we have a special meeting where you're being asked to not only discuss the 3 items, but later to approve them the same evening. If this had been said at the committee meeting, that we're going to table this, that we're going to approve it at the next board meeting, reaction may have been different. This is the type of thing where we lose confidence from every resident. I take that back. Some of the residents in Sauk Village who care about what we're doing as board members. Now, those that don't care, you can do anything you want to do. But if we tell them we're going to table something for discussion when the mayor and the police chief are available, then that's what we should do. Stick to what we said we're going to do and not just change horses midstream. And that's exactly what's happening tonight. You have a special meeting talking about approving something, discussing something, which you never said you would do. Now, if the board doesn't care, and the mayor doesn't care, then continue to do what you're doing right now. I think you should adjourn this meeting and wait until the next committee meeting and do what you said you were going to do. Discuss it with the mayor if he's available, the police chief if he's available. Discuss it with them at that time and not further this fiasco that you're doing tonight. Thank you.
Okay, trustee, any other questions?
Question.
Trustee Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to know past practice, the previous police chief that we had, did they hire on their own, or did they go before the police and fire commission?
On
Chief
full-time,
Martin?
full-time police officers go before the police and fire commission. Part-time police officers are hired just like in the department head, just like every other department.
And that's the way they've always, we've never had.
We've never had a part-time, because this is adding this section.
Okay.
We had auxiliaries at one time, which were part-time police officers, but the state of Illinois does not recognize auxiliary police officers anymore.
So we have to change the term.
So that's why we're adding this section for part-time.
Man, we never had part-time police officers. I don't care what you call it. We never had part-time police officers. Auxiliary is auxiliary. If they changed it, then this right here should state that it was changed from auxiliary to part-time police
It's not
officers. Nowhere on this right.
It's not changing auxiliary, this is adding section for part-time police officers, just like the title says, add. Right. Any other questions?
Just one thing, could you ask everyone to use their mics? We do have people in the audience who have hearing impairments, so we should all try to use our mics so they can hear the full conversation that we're having.
I'm sorry.
Any other questions? All right, move to item number 3. This is for the ordinance amending section 74192 of the village code of Sauk Village. This is for the traffic vehicles. This is for the impoundment of vehicles. I guess there are some open questions on this one, so trustee Williams.
I have a few questions. Page number 3, section 2. I'm sorry, section 1. We talk about the administrative fee of not less than $500. That may be an offense for have your vehicle seized. My question is, number 1, how will officers be aware of this? Be aware that there's an actual administrative fee of more than $500 when they're on the streets. And then my question number 2 is about the fee. So I'm going to throw a number out here because it has to be more than $500. If the fee is $700, okay, and then there's the tow fee. So I understand the tow fee would go to the tow fund. The administrative fee, would that go to the tow fund or would that go to the general fund? And would it have to be paid prior to the release of the vehicle?
I can, first of all, the officer's not going to go after the fees, but it ends up happening when someone comes in and fills out a toll release fee, or a toll release form, that will have on there what they'll have to pay. So those fees and stuff will have to be paid before the cars are released. The second question,
Where the money was going, the administrative fee. If there's an administrative fee and that's the reason for the car being seized,
The toll fee goes to the police department, the administrative fee goes to the general.
okay. So maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, but what I'm seeing is, I didn't cut my grass. I'm in excess of $700, I'm keeping number 700. I have $700 worth of fines. If that's the case, they can tow my car.
no. Where do you see that?
I'm reading what this says, and I'm asking a question because that's
Show me.
Oh, I'm asking the question because this is what's been
No, but I'm asking,
Through the strikes
show me
there.
where it's saying in
I'm
there.
asking you, because based on what I'm reading here, and based on what's in the world, I'm asking a question so I can get an answer. So if I have an administrative fee, which would be like a ticket, which would be that I didn't cut my grass up in excess of $500, so if I didn't cut my grass and I have a $700 ticket, can an officer tow my car because of that? Question, yes or no?
Go ahead.
Any kind of fee associated with vehicle.
Wait, Mike, please.
Give me that one right there.
I thought it was.
All fees are associated with the impoundment of the vehicle has to involve the vehicle itself, not other, like tickets or anything else. It has to be like the vehicle is stopped for some reason, it's impounded for a reason, an administrative fee can be added.
And I think we're on the wrong ordinance. I think your question might be coming in the next ordinance. This one here is about the impoundment of vehicles violations. This is for the funds and stuff coming from those violations. Talks about the collection of the monies deposited into the police department tow fund. All money collected by the village pursuant to section should be deposited in the Sauk Village Police Department tow fund for the use and purposes of said funding, including but not limited to overtime. Again, it spells out what they can spend it on.
You're right, that's not the other word.
Okay, so the money collected through the tow fund is limited to, but not limited to overtime pay for special unit deployments by the village police department, tools, equipment, used for department narcotics and gauge units, and miscellaneous expenses of the department. The chief of the department shall prepare an accounting of all department expenditures and funds collected pursuant to the section upon request of the village corporate authorities and upon request of the authorized village officials. This goes back to during the budget talks that the village board said they wanted to make sure that we had a separate account.
You're on the wrong word.
Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah, we're on number 3 still, I was on the right ordinance.
Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I apologize. I was on the wrong one. So, no, you're right.
So, again, number 1. And now the question was, should there be a situation where I have a violation, I violated an ordinance, and I'm going to take the grass cut in excess of $500, which is what this reads, and I'm going to take $700. I have $700 in ticket for not cutting my grass. Can the officer tow my car because of it? That's what is in the world of Facebook, and that's what was discussed at the ordinance review committee. So my question is, for this section, is that true, yes or no?
Sure, good.
The answer is the same. Any fee associated with impoundment has to involve.
Can you use the mic, please?
It has to involve the vehicle. In other words, the vehicle has to be moved and they stop it for some reason, they decide that they're going to tow it, then they can tow it. Or if they're in some violation spot, it has to be the vehicle. Nothing else to be associated with it.
So, just to be clear, it has to involve the vehicle because I ran a red light, I'm playing my music too loud, I have.
How about we talk about intoxication, we talk about
Drug
drugs.
paraphernalia in my car, blah, 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 which is already part of the ordinance that we've already had before, which is in this current ordinance. It is not because I violated a village ordinance that the officer can go. Okay.
There has to be a moving, I think it's called a moving violation. Right.
That's what I thought, but I thought maybe I was reading this incorrectly, so I wanted clarification.
No, that's why I said show me, because I read through this and I didn't see
I mean,
anything.
I read it, I was getting clarification because that's not what I saw in the World Wide Web earlier today, and I just wanted to make sure because I know another trustee approached me and said that they had received 8 or 9 phone calls from residents stating, if I don't cut my grass or I don't pay my water bill, then they're going to tow my car. And my question to that was, how would the officer even know that?
And every point in here talks about the operation and use of a motor vehicle or driving under the influence. Operation number 3 is operation. Number 4 is the operation and use of the vehicle. 5, same thing. 6 talks about driving with a license or without a driver's license permit. Again, you'd have to be pulled over for a moving violation. Operation of a use of a motor vehicle. 8 is operation of use of a vehicle. 9 is operation 10's operation, 11's operation, and 12's operation. So this whole entire ordinance deals with towing because of a moving violation while someone's operating a motor vehicle.
Okay, so the administrative fee, that would be just like the administrative fee that we put on water bills. It would be a fee that we could add to the fee that's already put on there for the tow fund, or is it in addition to, or is it what currently would be the tow fund fee now?
I think the administration fee is the toll fund
That's
fee.
okay, okay.
That's what they're saying, because the way it's worded is it's still the toll fund, but it's under administration fund fee.
And just so.
And it goes to the towing fund, which is the next ordinance, which I was wrong, sorry.
Okay.
All right. Trustee Burgess.
What is the administration fee? How much?
Not less than $500.
I can't go to the store and buy less than. I have to have an exact amount. What is the administration fee for this particular ordinance? It says not less than. That's $499. So I'm just asking, what is the administration fee so the people can see?
I think most of our ordinances, so it says not less than $500, so you're looking at a $500 fine or a fee.
And who makes that
But
decision?
it's part of the ordinance.
No, Mayor, who makes the decision? What, if it's spelled out, then they already know when they come that the administration fee is $50, $100, $200. Who makes the decision of not less than $500? When they get up here to pay that ticket and you got an administration fee, and they have the money for the ticket, which may be $300 or $400, and then the administration fee be not less than, who makes that decision how much the administration fee is?
It's not less than $500. So again, when you have someone that maybe go before the judge, or you know what? When you go before a judge or before a adjudicator, our ordinance says not less than $500. So you can't have an adjudicator or a judge go off and say, I want to charge you $25. Plus, I think most of our ordinances say it's up to $750, if I remember right. And again, a lot of people on this board.
But that's not a definitive answer, Mayor. You don't go pay your bills. When you come up here to pay your water bill, it says not less than $300. There's nothing that says that. They give you a definitive bill and say this is what you owe. But when you tell someone not less than 500, they say I got 100. You say, well, we need 300 more.
400.
Oh, okay, 400 more. Then why don't you put on there what it is rather than to leave it to whoever is collecting money at the window to tell a person. But it depends on how they talk to the person at the front desk. If they're belligerent, is more. If they're nice, is less. Or whatever reason it may be. Why can't it be everything else is spelled out? Why can't the administration fee be a definite fee? Because everything, you're right, it says not less than 500. This not less than, what is not less? I mean, who makes that decision? You're not going to be, does Mr. Fairman make that decision? Who makes that decision when they pay that bill? How much that administration fee is going to be?
It's 500.
But you still saying it's less than 500.
No, it says not less than 500.
Then why don't you put on there $499.99?
Because that's less than 500.
I said, why? So you're saying that other fee will be $500. Then why don't we say the fee will be $500? Why don't we say that? Not less than $500 doesn't tell me, that means it's going to be 500 plus. Plus what and for what reason? I'm sure when you pay, and you pay a late charge on whatever you pay a late charge, and there's an administration fee in there, they tell you how much it is. They tell you what the penalty is. In your water bill, they tell you what your penalty is if you don't pay by a certain date. They don't say less, it's going to be less, it's not going to be not less than $300. It should be on here. It should tell the person that's paying that it's going to be $500, period. But this is a salesman tactic. You can buy a car for $399.99, and that makes it sound like it's so much cheaper than $400. So I'm just asking, why don't we put something in here that says instead of not less than, that's 500, that's what it is? Is that what you want to put on there?
Every word's
500.
underlined, not less than, that gets removed. Is everyone okay with that? So, we need 500. So it will end up saying that, subject the owner to an administration fee of $500. And it looks like because it's underlined, is that the part they added? Yeah,
And
so that part was added.
my next question is, this money is going to be going to the tow fund, correct?
Correct.
Do we, and I've asked this question before, do we have a tow fund at the present? Do we have money in the tow fund right now?
No, because that's
No.
already right past the third ordinance. Ordinance has got to be passed.
What about
Right.
prior to 2016? There was cars towed prior to today.
Okay.
Where did that money go?
To the general fund.
Mr. Mayor, we established a tow fund years ago when back when the header was
Did you pass?
police chief. Yes, we
Did you pass
did.
the ordinance?
Yes, we did.
Show me the ordinance.
Oh, really? Then you get the same person that went out there to go get whatever they had to get for you to go out there and get that ordinance and bring it back in here for you. Because there is an ordinance that states tow fund, because that person, the police chief at the time, used that tow fund to purchase those cars. You were on the board then when that happened. They used that money to purchase the cars. That the last time we purchased cars for the police department, it was told to them that they needed to go out there and put X amount of money in the tow fund, and then they can have their cars. They went and did it.
Right.
That money went. Okay, so
We're
what you're
talking
saying?
about two different things.
It's the tow fund.
We're talking about.
It's the tow fund.
And that's the next ordinance we're going to talk about.
I'm asking you now in this ordinance that it says the money's going into the tow fund. I'm asking now, where is the tow? Do we have a tow fund? You said no.
We have a tow fund, but we don't have an account to put the money in.
I didn't ask about the account, Mayor. I asked about the tow fund. Is there a tow fund? And you said no. So where this money that these residents were putting in to pay to get their car out for whatever violation that they had, where did that money go?
The general fund.
But it's designated tow fund. It had a special line item for tow fund. Mr. Mohan was there back when we did this. And that money went there for that reason. Just like the drug seizure money went in a special fund for a reason. So it wouldn't get gobbled up in the tow fund, gobbled up in the general fund. But you keep saying right, but I have.
Any other questions on this ordinance? We're going to talk about the next ordinance in a minute. Any other questions on this ordinance? Trustee James.
Just for the board, in the existing documentation for the village, there's a section that talks about towing, and in that section speaks of towing. There are dollar amounts for specific infractions. So it doesn't say less than $500. It says $125 if you did A, $200 if you did B. It's more specific, and it lets you know, or the person know, that if they engaged in those type of activities, what the approximate money would be for them to get their car back. This is just a catch-all as you see it now. What's currently in existence, because you're not voting on all of this stuff, is a specific listing of fines that you can receive if you violate the ordinance. So that's just answering your question. There is something that's in existence that's more specific than this catch-all that you're looking at now. Thank you.
Trustee Lee.
To add to that, that's what I was going to comment before, is I think that maybe that's what this wording was supposed to be, the $500 initial fee, but it also deals with the infraction. But as Trustee Tate stated, that's not in here. So to say not less than $500 is true. You're going to at least pay $500 for the car that's impounded, but depending on the infraction, you're going to pay more. And I don't know if it's possible, I mean, I'm sure it's possible because it's a computer, to add that list in there and put, it's going to be $125 additional for this, it's going to be whatever additional for that, so that people, like Trustee Burton stated, when they go to get their car out, they'll know, I did this infraction, that's going to charge me $200 on top of the $500, so I should come back with $700. But that's not in here. Like you say, it's a catch-all, it's not less than. So that might be something to look into as well.
All right, any other questions? All right, so
All
we have,
excuse me, all of that money that's collected is all going to the tow fund?
it will, once this ordinance passes, there'll be a separate toll fund. Then what you're going to talk about next. All right? And so what we have in here is The amendment for this one would be remove all the not less than under section 2. So that would remove it from everyone from 1 to 12. All right? Okay, move to item number 4. Item number 4, ordinance amending section 74-192 of the village code. All right. This is the ordinance, talks about the collection and talking about where the money goes, what the money can be used for. Any questions?
Is this a redundance from the last ordinance that's stated on page 4 of the last ordinance? It says all money goes to the toll fund. This one says all money goes to the toll fund. This ordinance that you're introducing right now, ordinance number 74-192, states that all money goes to the toll fund.
Right.
The last ordinance that we just got to discussing, 74-333 and 74-338, stated on the page 5 that all money goes to the toll fund. So I'm asking, is this a redundant, or what is the difference between one states of the different infractions? That was the one we just got to talking about.
Correct.
But this one here gives it gives a more reason for towing. I mean, but we already know that because it spells it out in the other ordinance, the reasons, what you say, 12 of them, for towing a vehicle. It spells it out there. So the reason for this for this particular ordinance is
To be able to allow to set up an account, showing, and plus also talking about how all the money from the toll fund goes into this account and how those monies can be used from that account. So the first one, what we just got to talking about is the reasons for impounding a car. This talks about the funds, once they're collected because of this ordinance, are put into a separate account and what those monies can be spent on.
it said that in the last ordinance. It says that the money goes to the police toll fund to be used for the purpose of said fund, including but not limited to the police vehicle replacement and repairs, overtime pay for special unit deployments by the village police department, tools, equipment for the use by the department, narcotics and gang units, and miscellaneous expense of the department. That's in this one. That's in this one. So they're both the same as far as at the very end. This one here says all collected money goes to the police toll fund. All money is collected by the by the village pursuant to this section shall be deposited to the Sauk Village Police Department toll fund to be used for the purpose of said funding, including but not limited to overtime pay for special unit deployments by the village police department, tools and equipment used by the department's narcotics and gang units, and miscellaneous expenses of the department. They're the same. So I'm just wondering, what are we, we're gonna have two ordinances that are gonna say the same thing?
This is amending 74-192.
Okay. But it says the same thing.
No?
It does, okay.
Any other questions? All right. Here we'll go to public comment. Questions or comments was directed to the mayor. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. Comment on agenda items only. Each speaker will be allowed 1 opportunity to speak. We'll get you a mic here real quick. If you want to state your name for the record.
My name is Jan Clark. I live in Sauk Village. Okay, I have no problem with number 1. Number 2, I have questions on. Mr. Mayor, may I have your attention, please, because we're talking with you. Thank you. When you asked Mr. Mohan to go and get you some kind of document during the discussion of item 2, and you said, oh, this shows that we saved 2,000 or 20,000 or 2 million or whatever it was. Was that as of the end of the fiscal year 2015 or of the budget year? That's number one.
Okay.
Okay, and this would be to Mrs. Williams. Debbie, if you were the person in charge of keeping tabs on the budget, why don't you check and see if the budget is requesting for 3 or 5 new officers? Because not only the mayor, but with Burgess, Mr. Burgess, and possibly even Rosie, people were saying, well, I think, and I know that before you vote on this, you better figure out if you're talking about 3 or 5, or 5's going to slip in there real quick if it was 3. So that may be possible to have a verification on that. And I also have my own comments about number 2, that thinking that part-time police officers are going to be as dedicated as full-time. Item 3, parking monies, or item 3, I understand according to what I hear verbally, but nothing in advance, which I did mention at the last meeting. People in the audience come to look at view the board and they have no idea what's going on. But that's okay. Number 3, my comment is I think it's excessive for people in Sauk Village to have to pay $500 in administrative fees. There's nothing to administrate. All you do is write on a piece of paper or put it in the computer that such and such VIN number has been put in lockup or whatever you want to say. That's not administration. There's no work involved but $20. Come on. Rethink this, please. We're talking about village residents. And if they're not village residents, they're still people. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
All right, real quick, so you asked a question about the report I got. This, again, spells out the end of the fiscal year, so I can tell you exactly where the departments ended up. So that's how we knew where the police department ended up. So
Or the budget year.
the end of last year's budget year. So that's how we knew where it ended. All right. The part-time officers, in fact, all part-time employees throughout the whole entire village were discussed during the budget. So it was made very clear. If you go back, you can listen to it. You can find out that there's a total of 6 part-timers that were brought into the police department. One was I can't remember. Don't quote me on this. Records clerk or whatever. But the other 5 was for police officers. So that was discussed during budgets, and it was spelled out in every department at multiple meetings, because we had multiple meetings there. So, and you're out of order. Ma'am, you're out of order. Okay, thank you. All right. So the last thing we talked about was it's called administration fee, but it is the towing fee, and it makes it very clear inside the ordinances that the administration fee is the towing fee. That's where the money's going to. All right, next.
I have a couple questions. You're talking about hiring of part-time officers, which will back up the full-time officers on the street if need be. But then you say that they can also watch prisoners. So what happens if there's a prisoner and a full-time officer needs backup on the street? Next question is regarding the towing. So if you owe the village money for fines, and you get pulled over for speeding, your car can or will be towed. And in regards to the at least $500 that was brought up for that fee, is that going to be changed to $500, or is it going to be determined by whoever picks a number out of the hat, and that's what they get charged? You're talking about residents that don't have the money to pay a fee, but you want to slam them with a $500 fee on something else. Unless it's somebody that happens to know somebody or is liked by somebody, then maybe those fees can be reduced.
All right, you talk about part-time police officers. Part-time police officers will be directed by the police chief. So having those officers where they need to be will be up to the department head. The towing of the vehicles, again, a lot of people are bringing up about this $500, okay? The $500 fee has always been there. What was added inside this ordinance was amended was not less than $500, okay? This is going after, if you want to call them the criminal element, okay? This ordinance was very clear when it talks about intoxication. Those are putting our residents in danger. It talks about drug use. It talks about felons. You can go right down the line and look at the soliciting or possession of cannabis or controlled substance. So, you talk about the person who's a law-abiding citizen, they shouldn't have to worry about this whole fee again. This ordinance was passed, I don't have it in front of me, but it was passed probably quite a few years ago underneath the board, and this is an amendment to it, and we removed the not less than, but the $500 is already there, it's already been there. All right, next.
Judy Cass. I have questions on number 2. On the part-time officers, you indicated that the part-time officers didn't have to do certain things because they're not going to be unionized. My question is, and all of you, or most of you up there, have worked a situation where you are union, and if they bring some non-union person in to do work that they didn't offer to you, you're going to get paid for that even if you sit at home. Has anybody looked at the contract that our police officers have? And I'm almost certain that you have to offer the overtime to the full-time officers before giving it to a non-union person. Therefore, all your gibberish about saving overtime isn't going to fit in here. I also want to know what the urgency is in having a special meeting and then trying to pass things at the next meeting on the same night. The last time we went through this, we were lied to over and over and over. And I have an uncomfortable feeling about this one. And I have an uncomfortable feeling we will have a lot of lawsuits thrown at us. Number three, I have to make a comment on what Rosie had to say. And yes, the people in the streets are talking about if I don't cut my grass, they can take my car. We, the people, do not get what you get up there. We get this. And this says, impoundment of vehicle for ordinance violation. That in itself tells you what? Any ordinance violation they could take my car? Did you tell us different? Did you put it out there for us? I came and read the agenda on the door, and it doesn't tell me anything other than the fact that if I violate an ordinance, they're going to take my car. Transparency still is not there. I agree with Trustee Burgess when you ask about how much money. Did you say I'm up? Anyway, you're not telling the people enough.
All right, you asked a question about the contract. We have looked at the contract, so we looked at this thing, and a lot is you see they were bringing to the board or being done in other communities. We talked to other communities, especially I meet with the mayors, they meet with their managers. Again, so when you look at what we're bringing to the board, this is something that other communities are already doing. Talk about overtime, you're right, overtime is not going to part-time officers, and that's something they're there to work overtime. The overtime goes to the full-time police officers. So I don't know if there was some misunderstanding there, but they're not going to get paid overtime through here. And then when you talk about the impounded vehicles, it makes it very clear in the title. Title talks about the impounded vehicles for traffic and vehicles. So these are traffic, it says right on here. So in fact, it also says under item number 3, it makes it very clear. For the second line, it says traffic and vehicles. So it is on there. So we've got, let's see here. Yeah, so again, it's a traffic violation, and if you read through the ordinance makes very clear it's traffic violations. All right, next.
Kathy Betcher, Sauk Village resident. I originally came up here because I, like a lot of these people, was from the municipal understanding that it was a building. It was a building violation situation. As long as that is not the case, and you guys can guarantee that that is not the case, then we don't have a problem with that situation. But as far as this $500 administration fee, wording behind that should be plus ordinance or plus the fee that goes along with it. And that way you can tack on your 125 along with it without being charged unduly. Judy pretty much covered what I wanted to say, as long as we are not talking about building code violations. Correct. I want to ask something else, but I would ask that.
All right. Thank you very much. And again, the ordinance makes it very clear these are driving, moving violations. Every single one talks about either driving or operating the use of a motor vehicle. So I think there might have been some misunderstanding out there, some misinformation, trying to incite the residents with false information. So, any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move to item number 6. I ask for a motion to approve the ordinance amending the village code to add section 42-28, part-time police officers. Is there a motion to approve? Got a motion, is there a second? Got a motion and a second, any questions or comments? Hearing none, village clerk, please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Williams. Yes. Burgess,
No.
Jones,
No.
Myers,
Yes.
Tate,
No.
Severe.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 7, motion to approve an ordinance amending section 74-333 and 74-338 of Division 2, impoundment of Article 11, impoundment of vehicles for ordinance violations of Chapter 74, traffic and vehicles of the Village of Sauk Village. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor.
A motion and second, for any questions?
Second.
A motion and second, and
Question.
that's, I probably should have said, just so we all know, is that's the removing of the not less than from every single one under section 2. I forgot to include that, sorry.
We need to take away our motions and seconds and.
Sure.
I will remove my motion.
Sorry.
All right, so I would ask for a motion with the limits that we talked about, removing all the not less than. Is there a motion to approve?
No.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, motion and second. Any questions or comments?
Question.
Trustee?
As I stated before, I cannot go and vote on something that's not in writing. This is supposed to be removed, so until I see it in writing that it was removed, I will not vote on that.
All right, thank you, trustee. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Village Clerk, please call roll.
Burgess,
No?
Jones,
No.
Myers,
Yes.
Tate,
No.
Washington,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Item 8, motion to approve an ordinance amending section 74-192 of the Village Code of the Village of Sauk Village. Is there a motion to approve? Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any questions or comments? Trustee?
Just to speak to what Trustee Burgess said earlier, I just looked up the original ordinance on the website, and it doesn't say anything specifically as far as where the funds would go. So it's my understanding that that's what this ordinance is for. It's to go in conjunction the other ordinance that we just amended, but this says specifically that there will be actual line item, actual fund for it to go into, not just using the word fund, but actually creating an actual place for it to go. That's what this is.
And this ordinance was amended because of the trustees asking for it during budget hearings.
But he asked kind of why, because they did the same thing, that I just spent a lot of time looking at our ordinance, and it doesn't say specifically in the current ordinance that we have.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Question.
Trustee Burgess.
Trustee Williams, you do not remember as a trustee that we had a toll fund?
I absolutely remember having multiple committee meetings and having that exact same discussion and stating that this was going to go into the tow fund and that we were going to be able, the police department was going to be able to use the tow fund for said purchases. But I also remember countless meetings with this board talking about where's the tow money? How come the police department doesn't have access to it? Why is it going into the general fund? And this board saying there needs to be something in writing that says the money that is collected by the police department through the tow fund gets to be able to stay in the police department through the tow fund. And I thought, like you, Trustee Burgess, I remember the conversations we had those many years ago. I remember the idea that this board had that many years ago, but there was nothing in writing. So because there was nothing in writing, when the money came in, it went to the general fund. This is to stop that, as everybody on this board has asked for.
Mr. Mayor, can I direct a question to the finance director?
Sure.
Mr. Mohan, money that you got that has been coming in up until this point that was designated for the tow fund, did it go into a separate fund, earmarked tow fund?
No, it's sent directly to general fund.
So even though it was earmarked tow fund and it was earmarked, it was collected because of the tow fund, even back when Chief Felivas was chief, that money went to the general fund. So how did you know how much to take out of it to buy the cars?
I had to go to the detail, which led me to toll fund, then I had to move it back to the toll fund.
How did you know how much you were supposed to take out if it never went? If there was no, the money that was in the general fund, part of that was toll fund money.
The GL detail can generate it for toll fund. I can remove that much amount from toll fund and put it in a separate toll fund from there.
And also, because this also leads to the same thing,
Yeah,
drug and seizure. Do we have a drug and seizure fund?
yeah,
Earmarked separately?
yeah.
Okay, because this also says that same thing, that it's gonna go, so we had one but out the other. Okay, I just wanted to ask.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Marks.
I know several months ago, we discussed this at very lengthy discussion. And Mr. Mohan says that it went to the general fund. And everybody out there in this entire board and half the world knows it's in the general fund, it's gone. They can use it whenever or however to pay bills, whatever. So I know several times Trustee Burgess asked about, isn't there a fund? I asked about it, and I think every board member has. And we got the same answer. There's no ordinance on it. We discussed it, I know we discussed it. I have minutes that I wrote down, and I just don't write this stuff down for the heck of it. But this time, we do have a ordinance that it will go into the tow fund, period. Now, is there any chance, Mr. Mayor, Trustee, Finance Director Mohan? Now, this is going to go into tow fund. If whatever comes up, do you have the right to go into that tow fund and remove any money other than what is specified in the ordinance?
No.
Go on. All right. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Village Clerk, please call roll.
Jones?
No.
Myers?
Yes.
Tate?
No.
Washington?
Yes.
Williams? Yes. Burgess? No. Mr. Mayor?
Yes. All right, with item number 9, miscellaneous comments from the Mayor and Board of Trustees. Trustee Williams? Trustee Marsh? Trustee Tate?
I just want to reiterate, what I said earlier. We should come to a point in time where we stop lying to residents. We need to build confidence that what we do is in the best interest of the residents. And that's by telling them the truth. All this stuff that we've gone through, we said we're gonna have that discussion with the police chief and the mayor at a committee meeting. That's what we said, that's why it was tabled. Did we do that? No, we did not. And now we voted and approved all of it. So let's lie to each other. We lie to you, come on, lie to us. Because that's all we're doing. We are not building up confidence. And that's what we should be about. Building up confidence in the relationship between this board and you as residents. And it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not, as long as we're open, as long as we tell you the truth. Disagree all you want to. But it's when we lie to you and make you think we're going right and we go left, that's where the problem comes in. So, to the board, congratulations. You've done it again. Thank you.
Trustee Johnson.
Nothing.
Trustee Washington.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to say that I vote my own conscience, and I vote what I feel is best for the residents based on the discussion that we had. I don't need anybody to violate or to validate what I do or say, and I resent any statement that makes it seem like I'm doing anything other than after talking to the residents, what I feel is in their best interest. So I don't need nobody to congratulate me on what I've been sworn to do, but we all have a right to make our own comments and our own sentiments public at these meetings. And I try not to make mine, and I'm going to continue to try to do that tonight.
Trustee Bridges.
Mr. Mayor, board, and I guess residents, but basically mainly the board. Again, we're paying bills off the back of these residents. We raise rates, we do this. We need to find a way that we can work together to try to save money rather than increase rates, increase taxes. I'm sorry, but everyone here that's on this board lives in this village. Don't you see what's going on? Don't you see that we have less people than we had last year than this year? So what are we going to do? We're going to raise rates. We're going to hire more people that we are not able to afford to pay. We're going to bring all that in hope that that magic wand will come over Sauk Village and drop some money down. But in the meantime, we still have immediate checks. We still have to borrow from the water fund. I'm sorry, but I was put here as a trustee to watch the money. That's why I question. Thank goodness, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, thank goodness we don't have to get water from somewhere else, because as soon as we do that, we won't have a fund to pull from. Water department should have everything that they need to have, because they're helping this village survive. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee. Just lastly, tonight we saw 3 orders before the village board. These ordinances was not, first one was put additional police officers on the street with part-time officers. So again, for the safety of the residents, this was very much needed. We saw the second one came across talking about the impoundment of vehicles, and there's some slight amendments in there. Again, for a person who's getting their vehicle impounded, it makes it very clear that it's from everything from DUIs to intoxication, also from part of cannabis or drugs. So these are, if we want to call them, hideous crimes that puts our residents in danger. We don't want someone that's under the influence or someone that's doing stuff like this to be going off getting a ticket and driving that car away. So it's important that we impound that vehicle and keep our residents safe. And the last one that we saw before us tonight was an ordinance for the toll fund. We've heard much discussion about the toll fund, where the money was going. We know that for over the years, the village board has known it's been going into the general fund. Under the last budget, the village board asked for a special account for that money to go in to be spent, and that last ordinance spelled it out, where it's going to go into a special account, and what those funds can be spent on. So again, it's 3 important ordinances. Again, tonight was called for a special meeting because I was not here last Tuesday night, and there was some questions that could not be answered. So that's why we're here tonight for a special meeting, so we can answer those questions. All right, with that said, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
That motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Special meeting is adjourned. Okay, we'll move right into our village board meeting. But that's order, but